I was still in my pajama pants when Bryce zipped up the suitcase. Not a word, not a fight. Just the sound of metal teeth locking shut as he bent down to pat Zeus on the head, our golden retriever, our first baby before Eli was born, and then stood up like he had just closed a weekend bag, not our entire marriage. "I'm taking the dog," he said flatly, like he was stating the weather. "You get the kid." That was it. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, holding a half-sliced apple in one hand and the paring knife in the other. Not because I intended to use it, just because I was making Eli's lunch seconds earlier. Now the air had turned to stone, and my hands didn't seem to work anymore. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Then came her voice, sweet and cruel, like syrup over glass. "At least the dog's trained," Joan chuckled. She leaned against the doorframe, pearls glinting under the cheap ceiling light, lips curled into something between smugness and satisfaction. Her coat was already buttoned, her shoes polished. She had planned this. Bryce smirked. Actually smirked. And together, they walked out like a pair of thieves who knew they wouldn't get caught. No goodbye, no explanation, just a leash, a suitcase, and that line, "You get the kid." I walked past them wordlessly, stepping over Zeus's empty food bowl. I picked up a sheet of paper off the counter without realizing what it was until I saw the crayons, 3 stick figures under a smiling sun. One of them had a red cape. The smallest had spiky yellow hair. The tallest had a coffee mug labeled Archer One Dad. Eli had drawn us like we were still whole. In the next room, he was sitting cross-legged on the rug, headphones on, drawing again. I watched him for a second, his brow furrowed in concentration, unaware that everything behind him was cracking. That was the moment I made myself a promise. Let Bryce walk away with the leash and his mother. Let them laugh like they won something. I would take Eli and protect every inch of his heart from people who thought parenting was a game to win. I just didn't know that the real game had only started. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and opened my email. Subject: employment termination, due to conflict of interest. I blinked. I had left my job 6 months ago when Eli started having night terrors, but I was still consulting freelance. One of my ongoing contracts was with Bryce's company, Vega Analytics. We were careful, or I thought we were. The email claimed I had accessed sensitive algorithmic data tied to an internal performance review system I helped design. I hadn't. I didn't even have login credentials anymore, but the phrasing was enough to blacklist me from half the firms in town. It ended with a warning about NDA violations and the possibility of legal follow-up. I called Rachel Lynn, my old colleague from Vega. She picked up on the second ring. "They're doing it to you too?" she asked. "What are you talking about?" "I've been digging into Bryce's side project. There's something off. Fake data flags, unauthorized logins, even user shadowing. I thought it was an intern at first, but now I think he used your name." The room tilted. Bryce had access to my archived credentials. I'd trusted him. I once even saved my password manager to his desktop in case I forgot. That was 2 years ago. Now he was possibly using my name to cover his tracks. He didn't just leave. He lit a fire on the way out. That afternoon, I picked Eli up from school. He hopped into the back seat and said, "Dad didn't wave today. He just stood behind a tree. Why would he do that?" I wanted to say because he's a coward, but instead I said, "Maybe he didn't want to make you nervous." Eli frowned. He looked nervous. We drove home in silence. He didn't ask about the dog. He hadn't asked once, but I caught him tracing the outline of Zeus's paw print on an old art project he had glued to the fridge. When I reached to toss it during a cleaning frenzy, he whispered, "Please don't." That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and opened the shared drive from my freelance projects. Sure enough, 3 files had been downloaded remotely from my folder last week. One was an early version of a report I'd helped build on performance prediction bias, the one that flagged Bryce's team as high risk for inflated KPIs. It wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was data theft, reputation sabotage, and manipulation with a corporate smile. A few days later, I ran into Bryce at the grocery store. He looked surprised to see me pushing the cart, still in sweatpants and sunglasses, Eli trailing behind in his superhero cape. "You look, well," he said, tone neutral. "I am," he gestured toward Eli. "Still dressing like a flying tomato, I see." Eli frowned but said nothing. I almost let it slide, but something snapped. "You don't get to comment anymore," I said quietly. "You gave up your vote when you packed your things and left like you were heading to a conference." Bryce leaned in, voice lower now. "You're not exactly making this easy. Joan says Eli's been acting out." "Joan shouldn't be talking to Eli at all. She's family. She's poison." His jaw clenched. "You want a war, Emma? You're going to lose." I smiled. "Then you shouldn't have left the evidence behind." That night, I pulled Eli's latest drawing off the fridge. This one had just 2 stick figures, a mom with a crown and a kid with a cape. The dog was missing. Underneath, in careful block letters, he had written, "Home." If you've ever been overlooked after giving your all, type 1. I found out about the fake recommendation letter while cleaning out my spam folder. The subject line read, "Regarding your application, unfortunate concerns." It was from an HR rep at Stonefield Analytics, a role I had quietly applied for 2 weeks earlier, just part-time consulting, remote. Something to steady the bills. I opened the email expecting a polite rejection. Instead, it read, "Thank you for your interest. However, your reference, Mr. Bryce Carter, raised concerns about your ability to maintain confidentiality and emotional composure during high-stress periods. Given the sensitive nature of our data projects, we've decided not to proceed." I sat frozen at the kitchen table, the cereal in my bowl soggy and untouched. Eli was in the next room building Lego towers, humming a theme from a superhero show. Confidentiality and emotional instability. That's what Bryce had said about me? I never listed him as a reference, but his name still sat in old professional databases we used to share. Company databases I thought were long disconnected. He hadn't just walked away with the dog. He was now playing chess with my name, and I was the pawn he left on the board. The following Monday was our first mediation session. The office smelled like pine cleaner and artificial leather. Bryce walked in exactly 10 minutes late, perfect timing to appear busy but not rude. His suit was a shade darker than usual. Joan trailed behind him like a perfume you can't quite place but wish you could forget. I sat across the conference table, Denise beside me, files neatly stacked, flash drive ready. Bryce smiled at the receptionist. "Thanks again for the last-minute scheduling. It means a lot to have these conversations early. Eli deserves stability." He even said it like he believed it. Joan, without invitation, slid a small container of banana bread across the counter. "For the staff," she said with faux warmth. "Divorce is hard on everyone." I wanted to vomit. "Let's begin," the mediator said, glancing at the paperwork. "Both parties are requesting shared custody. Week on, week off. Correct?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" Bryce leaned back, fingers laced behind his head, casual as ever. "It's what's fair, Emma. You've had Eli non-stop. He needs both parents. And I have the bandwidth now." Bandwidth, like our son was a file attachment. Denise cleared her throat. "We'll need to review evidence of Mr. Carter's ongoing involvement, or lack thereof, in Eli's life before considering that arrangement." Bryce smiled. "I've been consistent." I opened the log I'd kept for the past 6 weeks. He hasn't called once, not on Eli's birthday, not even to ask how his asthma's been. I slid it across the table. He didn't even FaceTime when Eli won the school art contest. Joan scoffed. "He's a man. Men don't express everything the same way." Denise leaned forward. "We're not discussing emotional interpretations. We're discussing patterns of neglect and manipulation." Later that week, Bryce began showing up unannounced at Eli's school. The first time, I got a call from the front office. Mr. Carter dropped off granola bars and a new backpack. Eli seemed confused. By the third time, he was standing near the school gates in a hoodie that read Bar 1 Dad, handing out coffee to teachers and waving to other parents like it was a campaign rally. Eli stayed near his homeroom door, small and silent. When I asked Eli how it made him feel, he hesitated. "Weird," he said, "like he's pretending in front of people." He paused, then added quietly, He never used to care if my backpack had a rip. Now he keeps bringing me new ones. That night, Eli left a note on my nightstand. It was written in pencil, block letters, smudged at the edges. Dad says you cry too much. He says I'll be broken if I stay here. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened the screenshots folder. Messages from Bryce to Eli, worded as playful, but carrying barbs. Wish I could see you more, but your mom's not ready to share. Guess who said no again? Surprise. It was textbook parental alienation. But how do you explain a tone of voice to a judge? How do you show a 9-year-old's shrinking joy in bullet points? Rachel called again. I dug into the Vega Analytics user log, she whispered. You're still listed as an active external consultant. Bryce never revoked your credentials. In fact, he used your ID to sign off on a backdated approval for a performance model 2 weeks ago. I felt my chest seize. Why would he? Because your name has credibility. He's been inflating quarterly projections using a shadow algorithm. Your old approval stamp made it look real. I pressed the phone to my ear harder, trying to breathe. That's fraud. It is. And if this leaks, it won't just be him going down. Your name's on the audit trail. I opened the front closet and pulled out the banker box where I kept my backup drives. Inside, every project I had worked on at Vega, every clean record, every versioned draft. I began matching file hashes. His fake was a twisted clone of my original report. I added it to the flash drive. The next school morning, Eli sat at the kitchen table, dressed but not eating. He stared at his cereal, then looked up and asked, "Why does Dad act nice at school but mad when he texts me?" I sat down beside him. Because sometimes people care more about being seen than being real. He nodded slowly. So, he wants other people to think he's nice, but not for me. Yes. Then why does everyone believe him? His voice cracked on the last word. I put my hand over his. Not everyone will. Some people need time to see the truth. But you already see it. That afternoon, I got an email from Joan. Subject, veggie intake. Hi, Emma, just checking in. Eli looked a little puffy in his school photo. Are you monitoring his sugar? Bryce and I are concerned he's not getting proper discipline. Let us know if we can help. I didn't reply. I printed it. If you've ever watched someone manipulate their way to the top while you held the truth, type 2. That night, Eli crept into my room holding a crumpled paper. I found this in my backpack, he whispered. It was a card from Joan. Inside, Daddy's just fighting for you. Don't let Mommy win. He looked up at me, confused. Why does this feel like a trap? The message lit up on Eli's tablet at 9:47 p.m. He was supposed to be asleep. Lights off, red sneakers by the nightstand, his drawing journal tucked under one arm. But I caught the faint blue glow through the hallway crack. His door creaked slightly when I pushed it open. He was sitting up, legs crossed under the blanket, face pale. Mom, he whispered, holding the screen like it burned. I don't think Dad meant for me to see this. My heart dropped. I sat beside him, taking the tablet gently from his hands. The chat was still open, an iMessage thread from Bryce, meant for someone else. Probably his girlfriend, maybe a buddy. Either way, the damage was already done. I scrolled. She's still crying like a baby. That kid's soft. I'll toughen him up once I get custody. Can't wait to be done with that brat and get my real life back. Brat. He was talking about Eli. I blinked hard, forcing my vision to stay clear. Eli's fingers twisted into the blanket. Is it my fault he doesn't want me? My throat locked. I pulled him into my arms. No, baby. No. You are not the problem. Your dad. He's just broken in ways we can't fix. He nodded slowly, his cheek pressed against my shoulder. He didn't cry, but I did. Silently, after he fell asleep, crouched on the hallway floor with my back against the door. That night, everything shifted. I emailed the screenshots to Denise the next morning. She called me back before I even finished my second cup of coffee. Emma, she said, her voice tight, this could change everything. But you need to be prepared, emotionally and legally. If this goes to court and if Eli speaks, it won't be easy. I know, I said, but he deserves to be heard. He's only 9. I'm not asking him. He's asking me. Later that afternoon, we sat at the kitchen table, juice box and graham crackers between us. Eli had drawn a robot frog hybrid on the napkin while I tried to find the right words. You don't have to do anything you don't want to, I said gently. But if you want to tell the judge what Dad wrote, if you want to share how you feel, I'll be right there, every second. Eli looked up, eyes steady. Can I show him the texts? You can. The judge needs to know the truth, right? I nodded, blinking back tears. Yes, baby, he does. The next few days were a storm of quiet preparation. Denise filed for formal submission of the digital evidence. I organized our logs, texts, drop-off inconsistencies, missed birthdays, and Joan's manipulative notes. Rachel, still monitoring the back-end systems at Vega Analytics, confirmed that Bryce had used my credentials to approve a fraudulent bonus model, and that internal investigators were already sniffing around. He's panicking, Rachel said. If this custody hearing goes public, he'll lose everything. He should have thought of that before using our son as a shield. At school pickup that Thursday, Eli handed me a folded card without a word. I opened it in the car. It was another gift from Joan. A cartoon superhero taped inside, a handwritten message beneath. Daddy's just fighting for you. Don't let Mommy win. Eli stared out the window. Why does it feel like a trap? He asked. Because it was. That night, I began building the timeline on a corkboard in our bedroom. Every message, every lie, every missed FaceTime, the fabricated termination reference, the forged project approvals, Joan's letters, Bryce's public performances. I printed and pinned them with color-coded tags. Eli walked in quietly. He studied the board like it was a crime scene, which, in many ways, it was. You're building a case? I nodded. Like a superhero? I smiled. Exactly like that. He looked at the top right corner of the board, where I had pinned his drawing of our stick figure family. He reached up and tacked a new sketch beside it, a judge holding a gavel made of lightning. This time, I'll say what I need to say. The night before the hearing, Eli couldn't sleep. We lay side by side in the dark, listening to the hum of the old heater. His voice broke the stillness. What if they don't believe me? They will, I whispered. The truth doesn't have to shout. It just has to stand still long enough for people to see it. He was quiet. Then he reached for my hand. I want to wear my red sneakers tomorrow. They make you brave. Exactly. At 8:04 a.m., we entered the courthouse. Denise was waiting with a briefcase and a calm that felt practiced, not natural. Bryce was already there, pacing in a slate-gray suit, face tight. Joan sat behind him, gripping her purse like it was ammunition. Eli wore his school uniform and those red sneakers. He carried a small notebook in his hand, tucked under his arm like a shield. Before we entered the courtroom, I crouched beside him. You sure? He nodded. Let's finish it. If you believe children deserve to be heard, even when the truth is uncomfortable, type 3. As the bailiff called our names and the door opened, Bryce's phone buzzed. He glanced down, face instantly drained of color. Joan leaned over, whispering urgently. He turned to his lawyer and hissed, They have the texts. Denise caught my eye and whispered, This just got very real. I looked at Eli. He looked straight ahead. The first thing the judge said when he walked in was, Is the child prepared to speak? Not, good morning. Not, let's begin. Just that, because the evidence Denise had submitted the night before had done what I never could, shut the noise down. All eyes turned to Eli. He sat still beside me, his red sneakers brushing the courtroom floor, his small fingers clutching the notebook like it held a sword instead of a statement. I looked at him. He nodded once, tiny, firm. Yes, Your Honor, Denise replied. Eli would like to say something. He understands what that means. The judge paused. Very well. Come forward, son. Eli stood up, no shaking. No hesitation, just calm determination. He walked past the long wooden tables, past Bryce, who flinched as his son passed him without a glance. Joan whispered something into Bryce's lawyer's ear, her face frozen in disbelief. Eli climbed the small step stool they'd placed beside the witness seat. The room was dead quiet. He opened his notebook. His voice was soft at first, but clear. My name is Eli Carter. I'm 9 years old. I like drawing, outer space, and peanut butter pancakes. A few smiles flickered across faces. He continued. My dad used to tell me not to cry, even when I was scared. He told me boys who cry are weak. But when he left, he didn't say goodbye. He just took the dog. There was an audible shift in the room, a soft intake of breath. Bryce sat rigid, unmoving. His lawyer glanced down, suddenly focused on her notes. Eli turned a page. He sent me a message, but I don't think I was supposed to read it. He said I was a brat, that he couldn't wait to get me out of his life. He held up a printed copy of the text. The judge gestured for the bailiff to take it. Silence rippled as the judge read the words. Can't wait to be done with that brat so I can get my real life back. Eli went on. He said I cry like my mom, that we're useless, but my mom's not useless. She helps me when I have nightmares. She made me waffles when I was sad. She makes me feel safe. The judge cleared his throat but didn't interrupt. I don't want to live somewhere I feel like I'm a mistake. I don't want to be told I'm soft or broken. I just want to be a kid. He closed the notebook. His hands were trembling now, but he didn't drop it. He didn't cry. I hope that's okay. And with that, he climbed down and returned to his seat. He reached for my hand without looking up. I squeezed his fingers and whispered, You were perfect. The judge sat back, arms folded, scanning the courtroom. He turned to Bryce. Mr. Carter, do you have an explanation for these messages? Bryce opened his mouth. His lawyer quickly interjected. Your Honor, if we could request a brief recess. No, the judge said sharply. I've seen enough. He turned back to the bench, shuffling through the exhibits, his voice even but cutting. This court's responsibility is to prioritize the best interest of the child. In reviewing the messages submitted, the testimony delivered today, and the defendants concerning behavioral pattern, he looked directly at me. I am awarding full physical and legal custody to Miss Emma Carter, effective immediately. There was no applause, just stillness. Bryce slumped back in his chair. Joan stood up and grabbed her purse, not waiting for the hearing to officially adjourn. Her face was blank. Her banana bread smile was gone. Denise leaned toward me. We won. I didn't cry. I just exhaled, like I had been holding my breath for 3 years and finally found air. Eli tugged at my sleeve. Can we get pancakes now? I nodded, smiling through the crack in my chest. With extra whipped cream. We didn't talk about the hearing on the drive home. Eli rolled the window down and let the wind push through his hair like it carried something away. Maybe it did. We stopped at a small diner off Route 19. He ordered pancakes shaped like stars and asked the waitress if dinosaurs ever ate syrup. She laughed. Only the sweet ones, he grinned. For the first time in months, his laughter didn't sound borrowed. 2 weeks later, the court documents arrived. Full custody granted. Supervised visitation only, pending evaluation and behavioral compliance. Bryce didn't appeal. His lawyer dropped him the following week. Joan never reached out again. Rachel texted me, internal audit at Vega just blew up. Bryce's logins were traced. You're clear. He's gone. Eli started sleeping through the night again. He drew comic strips, bright and chaotic, featuring a caped mom who saved the galaxy with truth and waffles. I hung them on the fridge. They made the kitchen feel like hope. I got new clients, better ones. Ones who respected boundaries and didn't ask me to recycle old reports. One night, Eli crawled into bed with me, not out of fear, just to talk. Do you think Dad ever really liked me? I took a breath. I think he liked the idea of being a dad more than actually doing it. He looked at me, thoughtful. That's okay, I like you enough for both of us. If you've ever watched someone lose everything because they finally got caught in their own lies, type 4. A week later, an envelope arrived at our door. Subpoena. Emma Carter is requested to testify in the federal investigation against Vega Analytics. Inside, a screenshot of internal files tied to Carter-authored predictive model data, manipulated and resold to third-party clients. The last line read, Your cooperation is appreciated. Refusal to testify may impact custody-related privileges. I looked at Eli's drawing on the fridge, his superhero mom flying over the city. They thought I was done? They were wrong.